Bhagavad Gita is a book of mankind's collected experience of and answers to life's most basic questions. Who I am, from where do I come, what is my purpose and destiny, and most practically, how do I find happiness? These podcasts originate in the lectures of Neil Bhatt, a disciple of Swami Chinmayananda. They are presented here in 20 to 30-minute segments, each covering 3 of the Gita's 701 verses. Welcome to Gita Wisdom for Daily Living.
We had been discussing chapter 4, Gnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, Yoga of Renunciation of Action in Knowledge. So we had been discussing Karma Yoga in last chapter, and in chapter 2 Bhagavan says that Karmani eva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, that your right is only to act, but you have no right for your fruits of actions. So, for us to understand that concept, we have to understand what action is. So we have learned in this chapter what action is, which then relates to what we have learned about Karma Yoga in the last chapter, where we have seen that Bhagavan said, Yogastha kuru karmani, sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. That's the essence of Karma Yoga. Do not expect any fruits of your action. Establish yourself in yoga, and then without any attachment perform actions in this world is Karma Yoga. Action I must perform, but I must perform in this manner. And for what I should perform action, this chapter in verse 9 says, Yagnarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. All actions other than those performed for yagna are binding. Tadartham karma kante. Therefore, perform actions for yagna alone. Mukta sanga samacharaha, without any attachment, with equanimity of mind. So the final advice we have seen is perform actions for yagna. Then what is yagna? We learned in verse 24 that yagna is to understand that everything that is involved in my action is nothing but Brahman alone. There is no difference between the hunter and hunted. It's all manifestation of Brahman alone. So Brahmarpanam, Brahma Havehi, Brahma Agnau, Brahma Hutam. Using this metaphor of yagna, we have learned that everything involved in this yagna, the 4 things involved: the instrument, the offerer, the deity, and the offering itself. So these 4 items, Bhagavan said that is nothing but Brahman alone. Brahma eva samadhinaha. It's only going to the Brahman alone. This is the renunciation of action in knowledge. Having this knowledge that all actions are performed because and by Brahman, by the power of Brahman. Bhagavan said, that's yagna. So then next few verses, we will learn the 12 types of yagnas. We have seen so far 10 of them from verse 25 onward. So in verse 25 is Deva Yagna and Brahma Yagna. Deva Yagna is that when I see that all that is happening in my experience, all the sense perceptions are only happening, the offerings of the sense object to the senses, the devas. Therefore, I remain detached from those experiences. That's Deva Yagna. Every experience I see is only happening between the sense objects and the senses. I am just a witness of what's happening. That Deva Yagna. Then we say Brahma Yagna. When I offer my limited self to my higher self, when I realize that my limited self is nothing but the expression of the higher self, it was never separated from its higher self, that is Brahma Yagna. As we have seen the room space and outer space, they are always one and the same. Remove the room, space remains where it is. My conditioned self remains where it is. After my death, it was here before my birth. So that's Brahma Yagna. That understanding firm in your mind, constantly keeping at the back of your mind in all your action, Bhagavan says Brahma Yagna. Then sense control. That's another type of yagna. Either control your senses so that they don't wander around, or mind control. Senses may bring any information, but mind does not get attached to it. That's the mind control. Self-restraint by controlling all the senses is self-restraint, So that's another yagna we have seen. And in the last verse which we have discussed, there are 5 yagnas we have seen. Dravya yagna, Tapa yagna, Yoga yagna, Swadhyaya yagna, and Gnana yagna. So, the life of charity, everything that I have is for charity. That's Dravya yagna. Dravya yagna is not just giving a one check every year during tax time, but it is something which I offer that everything I have is for the greater good. Nothing belongs to me. What I have acquired from this world, this Prakriti, I have to give it back to the Prakriti. What I have borrowed from this Prakriti, this body, mind, and intellect, they also don't belong to me. They are just lended to me for my experiences. That type of attitude, Bhagavan says, Dravya yagna. Then Tapa yagna, austerities. For the self-control, when I perform certain disciplines, that's Tapa yagna. Then Yoga yagna. Various upasanas and sadhanas, that's a yoga yagna. All these yagnas are for the purification of my mind and intellect, for the antakarana shuddhi. As a seeker of happiness, my job is only to purify my internal instrument. Rest will happen automatically by God's grace. Grace is not that the Bhagavan is partial to his bhakta. That, now he is praising me all the time, let me be part. It is the very nature of yourself. Just like I think that Yogi Berra who said, the more I practice, it is luckier I get. It's not the luck, it's my preparation made me worthy of getting that opportunity. So here, yoga is the upasana. I prepare myself. Then the next one is Swadhyaya, reflecting on your own self. Introspection, who I am. Is this body me, this mind me, the intellect me, the accomplishments me? Who am I? That's basically is the Swadhyaya yagna. And then we said Gnana yagna, yoga of knowledge. Offering your ignorance, consciously trying to get out of the veiling of this mind is Gnana yagna. Our learning Bhagavad Gita falls into the Gnana yagna. The last 2 yagnas, the pranayama and pratyahar. These come from Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Ashtanga Yoga, 8 parts. The yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahar. 4th and 5th steps of Ashtanga Yoga, pranayama, pratyahar. So the verse 29 says, Apane juhvati pranam, prane apanam tatha apare, prana pan gati ruddhva, pranayam parayanaha. Those who are expert, they are engaged in pranayam, they perform this pranayam in various ways. There is not a one method. There are various ways. It says, Apane juhvati pranam. So apana is outgoing breath, and even this book says outgoing breath. I read Bhagavan Shankaracharya's Bhashya and it says apana is incoming breath. So there is a little contradiction. And I checked some other books and some of them kind of agreed with Shankaracharya's Bhashya. It says apana is incoming breath, up anaha is incoming and pra anaha is outgoing. But whichever way you look at it, the meaning does not change of the verse. It says apane juhvati pranam. Some offer outgoing breath into the incoming breath, and prane apanam tadapara, and some offering the outgoing breath into incoming breath. In other words, 2 diametrically opposite practices in pranayam. Pranayam, as we have seen, is the control of all the vital energies. But the core of it is the control of breath, which is actually the word is swasa. And if you read Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he does not use the word prana here, he says swasa. Incoming swasa and outgoing swasa, he uses the word swasa. So swasa is breath. But the overall technique is also called pranayama. By controlling your breath, you control your pranas. All the other functions of the pranas, which right now I have no control over. So even when I am in a deep sleep, all my organs are functioning properly, my heart, my brain, my liver, my kidneys, because the conscious mind has no control over this organ. You can imagine if the conscious mind has to control these organs, then we will all be in lots of trouble. But conscious mind has no control over these organs, or they are free of conscious mind, and therefore it functions in all three states of my existence, that waking, dream, and deep sleep. But the yogis have found ways to control these functions by the conscious mind. And this is called pranayama. Their observation was that as the state of my mind changes, my breathing changes. So if I can control my breathing, I may be able to control all my pranas and all my mental thoughts. So the techniques devised was to control breath. Pandit used to say that we have finite number of breaths to take in this life. If you take faster breathing, you have a shorter life. If you have slower breathing, then you have a longer life. So people who are calm, normally quiet and have control over their breathing is normal, they live a longer life. People who are very excitable and constantly get agitated and excited, their breathing goes faster and they live a shorter life. I have no knowledge about that, but this is what the Yoga Sutra basically says. Control your breath so that you are regulating your breath. So many years ago, when we were in Dallas, Texas, we took the course of Raj Yoga, in Pranayama and Raj Yoga. One of my friend's father, Mr. Haris Raja, was a disciple of Swami Muktananda, and he gave us a pranayam training. We used to have that in early morning at 6 o'clock. And that's a part of Raj Yoga. So the yogas, which we have seen, the pranayam, are performed in three different types of tradition. One is the Shiva Yoga. Vijnana Bhairav is the book from the Kashmir Saivites. And you see on TV this Shiva Yogi comes. And he said that by controlling the breath, you can control all your systems. There is no need for any medication. We can control everything by controlling breathing. Then popularly what we know about yoga in this country is Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga is basically the first three sections of Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama and Asana. They focus more on the third step, which is Asana. But then the Yoga Sutra says you should not start pranayam until you have mastered asanas. So asanas are very important. And then once you master the asanas, then you do pranayam. And many teachers I have come across say Hatha Yoga is very good, but it is also can be dangerous if you are not under the guidance of a trained teacher. Be careful, have a good teacher, then you can practice. Raj Yoga, on the other hand, is considered safer and subtler. So what Panditji used to teach is also Raj Yoga, and what we learned many years ago, that's also Raj Yoga, where basically the breathing is controlled by 9 mudras. They call it remote controls. Now obviously there is no scientific study done on why that works or does it work, but all the yogis have said that they do work. So it's the apane jhuvati panam prane apanam tatha apare prana apana gati rundva pranayama parayanaha. Those who are expert, they engage in this pranayam. And in Bhagavan Sankaracharya's Bhashya, I learned that the first technique of apane jhuvati pranayama is called purak. We talked about purak, rechak and kumbhak. He said these three are described here. The first one is called purak. When you are offering incoming breath into the outgoing, it's called purak. Then another is called rechak, because you are offering incoming with an outgoing breath. And then pranapati gatim rudhva, restricting the flow of air, is called kumbhak. This has to be practiced in a serial manner. So Mr. Raja used to write articles in Times of India. Those articles were published into a book. And in that he said that the goal of pranayama is, our normal breathing is about 16 breaths in a minute. The goal is to reduce them to 4. So in 1 minute there are only 4 breaths. And he recommends in his book, and what he taught us back in the 80s is 5 seconds for inhalation, then 2 seconds of kumbhak, inner kumbhak for 2 seconds, then 7 seconds of exhalation, because he said the air has now expanded because of the body temperature. So it takes longer to exhale than inhale, so it is 7 seconds. So that makes 14 seconds. They hold the breath of 1 second outside before taking the next breath and they start the cycle again. That makes 15 seconds. So there were 4 breaths in a minute. Or the rate of your breathing is now down to 1/4 of what's your normal breathing. So these people are all pranayama parayanaha. They're practicing the purak, rechak, kumbhak, various types of yoga because they are expert in that. That's the one method of yajna. Other is pratyahara. Apare niyat aharaha. And others by controlling the diet, controlling all the intake in your system. So it actually applies to all senses, not just food, all senses. Pranan pranesu juhvati. They offer prana into prana. And Bhagavan Shankaracharya says that is control one prana. In this case, maybe a swasa. As we have seen the prana, apana, samana, vyana, udana, the 5 pranas. This bioenergy in you, several systems, out of that, if you control one and then offer all others into it. So you control your swasa, your breathing, then all other, the vyana, udana, samana, offer into that. So they all become subsidiary to that prana. So that Bhagavan said is pratyahara. Prana, pranensu juhvati, sarve api ete yagna vidaha. They're all knowers of yagna. They know what they are doing and they are performing this yagna for purification of the internal instrument. The goal of all the yagna and any selfless activity is to purify my internal instrument. So he's saying, Sarve epe ati yagna vidaha yagna kshapita kalmashaha. And by this yagna, they become free of sins. And we have seen sin. Impurities on my mind is sin, and by yagna, I can get rid of this impurities on my mind. Yagna sista amruta bhujaha yanti brahma sanatanam. The nectar, which is the remnant of yagna, one who eats, he goes to Brahman, the eternal Brahman. In other words, the results of this yagna, when I enjoy, then I become one with that eternal Brahman. Na ayam lokoho asti ayagnasya kutah anyaha kurusattamaha. Even in this world, person who is not disciplined and not performing this yagna, this world is not for him. He does not achieve anything in this world. One who is not disciplined obviously cannot achieve anything. There is no discipline of mind, discipline of action, discipline of behavior. You obviously can't achieve anything. So therefore, even in this finite world you can achieve without yagna, then what to think about life after death? And therefore Bhagavan said, yagnarthat kuru karma. So we'll stop right here. If you find this podcast helpful, please support it by donating any amount by going to the episode's website at neilbhatt.podbean.com or at chinmayarichmond.org. Thank you. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.